Football 2024 in crystal clear HD stereo. Today's pregame show is brought to you by
Volleman's Dairy, the official milk of the Dallas Cowboys. Arrow Exterminators, official pest control provider of the Dallas Cowboys. Buffalo Wild Wings. Blockchain.com. Blockchain.com. Make your crypto play today. And by DallasCowboys.com. Keep track of the boys with daily podcasts and up-to-the-minute blogging at DallasCowboys.com and on the official Dallas Cowboys app.
Now, here's Eric Chiofalo and Bryan Broaddus.
Hello and welcome to the official pregame show of America's team. Ladies and gentlemen, preseason game number 2, live from Las Vegas. How beautiful is that? Raiders and Cowboys. And we're off. We got Bryan Broaddus in Oxnard, California. He has been our boots on the ground, eyes and ears for this Cowboys football team all camp long. If you have any questions for Broaddus, he's been there. He's seen it firsthand. Go ahead and text it in, 877-881-1053. We're here until kickoff. We got you for the next 3 hours. Absolutely loaded, as always, on your Cowboys pregame show here on 105.3 The Fan. It's great to have you in. Broaddus, happy game night to you, sir. How the heck are you?
Doing very well, Eric. Thank you very much for Game 2, and hello to those around the world that are listening to us today. A lot of folks reaching out to me and saying how much they really enjoy our work, and so I just wanted to give everybody a shout-out for that. I do appreciate you. Eric and I both appreciate you. Should be an interesting night for football. Talk to some folks with the Raiders. Their mantra is, if you're healthy, you're going to play. So this ought to be a lot of fun if you're the Dallas Cowboys of having to deal with the Raiders and their situation. They're all about culture and trying to win games and stuff. So we'll see how this thing plays out with maybe some starters versus some backups here.
Oh my goodness, that is that's probably not what you want to hear if you're a guy like Trey Lance or I mean, my good, are we going to see Max Crosby, the local legend? Come on.
You know what, Antonio Pierce? I mean, I have several friends there with the Raiders, and they were all like, I'm like, hey, you guys going to play your starters, and that's just they're trying to have a culture change there,
right?
You know, and it's about winning, and you know, with a little bit with Mark Davis, that competition that he has with Jerry Jones. I mean, they are best friends. Al Davis's father was one of Jerry's mentors coming into the league. One of the reasons why I think that Jerry is the general manager of his football team is because Al Davis many years ago told him, hey, you do not have to hire somebody out to do that. You can do your own stuff. And so, yeah, the Raiders and the Cowboys have a unique connection with each other, and you know, you look at, like I say, this will be interesting to see if all of a sudden Tyler Guyton's out there, you know, in a 3-point stance, and next thing you know, he looks and there's Max Crosby comes screaming off the edge. So, you know, he's had his share of guys he's had to deal with in this camp. Whether you look at his own that he's had to with Parsons and Tank, and then with Verse the other day with the Rams, and then now, you know, maybe a little bit of Max Crosby screaming down the barrel at him.
Yeah, I mean, my goodness, that's quite the welcome to the NFL. If you're Tyler Guyton and you're going up against Micah every day, and then, as you mentioned, Jared Verse, the rookie edge rusher with the Rams, he is certainly going to be a handful for everyone as it relates to the offensive tackles in this sport. So, hey, I mean, my goodness, that's what you want as a Cowboys fan. You're like, hey, that's fine. Let's go ahead and get a little Guyton versus Crosby. Let's go ahead and throw this dude into the deep end and see how he reacts here. How much Guyton do you expect to see today? And on that same note, when it comes to the offensive line, do you expect Cooper Beebe to start at center?
Yeah, that's to me, when I was watching practice, and they went back to what they did in round one or game one, where they went for the cards practice. And when it turned into cards practice, then it was about the Cooper Beebes and guys like that. You know, Guyton was getting some work with the ones. They did a period where they went, it was a mojo moment, and they went on like a 15-play drive where it was just play after play after play. And then you're like going, man, Guyton out there a long time. And so then when they went to the cards practice, well, Ball, who's been playing guard, moved out to tackle and got work. But I did get some intel that Guyton is available, will be ready to play, and likely he will see some work. It sounds like they've got a lot of guys on pitch counts again tonight. Everybody kind of has their level of where they're going to play. The Raiders probably a different mode of attack as the Cowboys, but Guyton should play tonight. And will it be 12, 15 plays? We'll see. I think a lot depends on what doesn't need to happen tonight. Is I should circle back because the Raiders are going to name their starting quarterback after this game, so there's something for them to try and kind of figure some things out. Again, that's why probably a different mode of attack for how they're going to take this game as opposed to the Cowboys and how they're going to take this game. So that's another reason to kind of be alert. But, yeah, everybody I think will get an opportunity that needs opportunity other than, like I say, the starters for the Cowboys probably are not going to get that opportunity, but Cooper Beebe will get plenty of work, to your question.
Okay, fantastic. 877-881-1053, the official pregame show of America's Team, brought to you by Reliant and NRG Company, getting you set for preseason game number 2 here in Las Vegas. We'll go inside the Star with Bobby Belt coming up here in just a bit, and behind enemy lines with the voice of the Raiders, Jason Horowitz, at the end of the hour here. But, okay, now one guy we know who's not going to play for the Cowboys today or tonight is Mazi Smith.
Yeah.
What can you give us on the allergic reaction situation? Is this a cafeteria deal? Did he go off site, hit a little Chipotle or something like that, and had a bad reaction?
Yeah,
what do we need to know?
Yeah, I cannot get anybody to tell me exactly what happened with Mazi. So that's something they always cite the old HIPAA law things when it's things like that.
Oh yeah.
So there's information you can get, and then there's other information you can't get. So we got the updates. Scott Agolnik sent us an update yesterday that there was a probability, or there was a chance, that he was not going to make the trip. We got an update this morning that he will definitely not make the trip. So he is. I'm at the complex here, and he is somewhere probably in his room, getting ready to watch this football game like the rest of us. But could not get exactly what the allergy was or how this all transcribed. It's been very, very hush-hush since yesterday afternoon.
Okay, fantastic. Now we got a couple of questions here for you on the text line,
Love
Broaddus,
it.
but
Love this.
I did want to just ask you, what do you imagine the plans are for Trey Lance tonight? We know Cooper Rush started last week. Lance got a lot of the work after that. Do you expect similar?
Same thing.
What? Same thing. Yeah, you're going to probably get Cooper Rush for a series, maybe two, and then it'll become the Trey Lance show. I know, talking with Fred and Blake earlier, that Nick Eatman was on with them at some point, and he was kind of talking about, hey, we might have a different way of looking at Trey Lance after this one tonight. I kind of felt like last week, if Trey Lance makes 3 throws, we might have had a different opinion of Trey Lance as well. So let's see how things work in the red zone, but that's been kind of the issue for Trey Lance. The numbers haven't been good down there. The decision-making hasn't been great. Where he sees the defense and how it gets to where it is, he's struggled with that a little bit. So Nick Eatman seems to think that maybe this will be the game that we kind of think of Trey Lance differently. If those are the things that we're talking about improve, I wholeheartedly agree with Nick on that. But this is going to be Trey Lance's ball game again tonight. All right, probably just in time for him. He's probably not upset. Maybe you don't start the game. Cooper Rush gets to go up against Max Crosby and company. If we're going to have the starters out for the Raiders for a little bit, then maybe Trey Lance can slide in when the backups arrive.
That's a good plan. I'd go up to Mike McCurt. Well, you know what? This is, as long as Guyton is out there, and now you're not going to game plan, but we saw last week a little bit of that ability with the backs to chip. So, I don't know if you want, if you want Max Crosby getting chipped a bunch in this game. They could also try and remove him by putting a tight end to that side and put him further away from Guyton. But if he does play, like I said, there'll be some one-on-one battles there, and that might not be bad for Guyton to have to deal with.
All right, the 215 asking you, Broaddus, what concerns you more for this upcoming season? Is it the interior defensive line, especially as it pertains to stopping the run? And of course, they made the trade for Jordan Phillips earlier in the week with the Giants. We can touch on that. Or is it the running back position and just the general production from that group right there? Where do you have your concerns?
I think they're going to be better as a run defense, not just because of the defensive tackles. I think the linebackers in this room are really, really good. I think they play with instinct. I think they play downhill. I think they all tackle well. You didn't have that last year. You had one guy, Leighton Vander Esch got hurt, and once he got hurt, then things kind of started to fall apart with him a little bit, or with the run defense. Don't put it all on the defensive tackles. This needs to be about, okay, who's playing right end? That needs to be the focus too. Okay, if Nealon's playing right end and he's going to play with discipline and he's going to play with power, they will be better as a run defense. They will be better if the linebackers can get to the football like this crew has. That could be an improvement. Maybe Diggs decides, you know what, I'm going to try and force some runs. If they bounce to the outside, I'm going to try and force. How about some safety play? Instead of single high, all of a sudden you got too deep. You got a guy on the hash. You drive that guy in the alley off the hash. Now you're playing better run defense. So, yeah, the running backs. Tonight is the night where you've got 2 more games. One tonight, one next week against the Chargers. You got all your running backs are healthy. Find a way, and they're not going to play Zeke. It's just not going to happen. But the other ones, Dowdle, all those guys, they all need to play. Every one of those guys need to play. When you start to, Freeman, Snoop, Connor, Davis, they all need to play in this game. And, the next couple of weeks, it'd be nice to see Trey Lance not throw the ball 40 times and maybe, 18 runs, kind of divided up. See if one of these backs can kind of separate themselves from the other. Deuce Vaughn, see if he could separate. That's the concern I have right now is I think the run defense will be better just because of the linebackers.
Well, and then they bring in Jordan Phillips this week from the Giants as well. Is that a guy who you envision starting next to Osa? And Jordan Phillips being the big 340-plus pounder that he is, being your
he's a different cat. He's a different cat. He could play 1 and he could also play 3. There's he could play, like, if he had to be the backup to Osa, he could do that. I've seen him play in both spots. Ideally, this is not a big sloppy guy. This is not when you see him, he is a guy that's, he's big, but he's not sloppy looking, and he's got nimble feet and his ability to move and to play with range. See, that's where I think he's different than what Hankins was. Hankins, to me, was stationary, and if you went at him, it was tough. If you went a gap over, it was like tough. You went 2 gaps over, he's not going to make the play. This guy, they run him in twist games, stunts, play him at the edge, run him inside. I mean, there's things they've done with this guy that can kind of give you some flexibility to not be just, I'm just going to be an anchor down 1. He could give you some pass rush that Hankins didn't give you.
Well, that's encouraging. Do you expect to see Jordan Phillips tonight?
He just got here. So I haven't seen him practice.
Oh, okay.
I haven't
gotcha.
seen him. I think he showed up with a Motley Crue T-shirt on or something. They were just
Def
telling me
Leppard,
about
I think.
Def Leppard. Yeah, he walked on. I know it was one of those 80 bands, but he walked onto the field and kind of like everybody's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going? Great," all that stuff. So yeah, I don't know how much you might see him tonight. We'll keep an eye on it. Of course, we're all going to watch the game, but I don't think he's done any practicing with these guys that I've seen. Now, they've had some walkthrough things where they practice without the media here, because when I was on the show with you guys yesterday, Bones Fossil was wearing me out with third down calls and stuff like that. So there was some practicing going on here last night without the media watching. So keep an eye on that.
Okay, very good. Now, how do you go about, because you're like basically you're the big man on campus now because everybody's bailed from Oxnard to Vegas. So
yeah.
How do you post up? You just go up into your room? You have like a tiny little screen? Do you got a big screen in there?
I got a big screen in my room. Yeah, no, the Cowboys took care of me. I've got a really nice room. Matter of fact, I could live in that room, but it's beautiful. I mean, it's got a big screen TV. I was trying to. They've got a big TV here on the tennis court lots, and I was kind of trying to talk them into turning that on for me, so I could just take your chair and put it out there and watch the game, and then come down here and kind of do, because it's like walking back and forth, but I'll be fine. But yeah, the setup here is beautiful for me.
What do you got as part of the game day spread today?
I went for bag salad.
Bag salad. You just half-assing it, huh? Preseason form, Bryan.
I tell you what I do, man. I got a refrigerator. I don't have a car. That's my issue. So I had to go, and I'm kind of stuck. It's not like I could sit here and say, "Oh, hey, let's do a brisket in my room." Or, hey, let's, I mean,
hey.
You're acting like I've got the ability to like shove some, make some ribs, I mean, bro, I'm here working. I mean, I had to go. I could doll up a bag salad, though. You give me one of those bag salads, I could put a special kind of cheese on it, stuff that you could put in the fridge. Yeah. But my man here, Eric Chiofalo, is calling me out for not having the ability to like throw a Hurtado barbecue platter at me at the game tonight. Oh, half-assing it, yeah.
I'll tell you
I'll see what's going on here.
I'll tell you what.
What are you doing home and getting? What are you going to watch the game with tonight?
100
pounds of ground beef.
I'll be eating that ground beef, baby.
Yeah.
I might
ground beef out of a bowl like you're a dog.
No, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna nacho that thing up. I'm gonna just melt some cheese, get some chips going.
You got caught in a lie. You got caught in a big lie because you're gonna go home and your big ass is gonna lay on the couch and you're gonna eat out the ground beef bowl and watch the game, and then you're gonna go to sleep.
I feel very seen right now. You need to get that guy in your algorithm who's making like ribs and nachos and stuff in his hotel sink.
All right,
you need to take a page out of his book. Okay,
the guy, I saw that looked disgusting. He's squashing guacamole in the sink. I'm going, I'm going, man, I don't know if I could do this, bro. I don't know.
That guy's a wild animal. All right,
Yeah.
we're just getting started here on the official pregame show, the Dallas Cowboys preseason game number 2, less than 3 hours to kick off Cowboys-Raiders in Las Vegas. We have our Cowboys insider, Bobby,
Whoa.
live in studio. Let's go inside the Star with Robert next on The Fan.
Window Nation, the star of window replacement.
Too wild. Jack Links. Feed your wild side. Always feed your wild side responsibly. Be safe. We're saying this because we love you.
All right, we're just over 2.5 hours to kick off preseason game number 2. Welcome into the official pregame show of the Dallas Cowboys here on 105.3 The Fan. We got Bryan Broaddus live in Oxnard, California, and we're going inside the Star with our Cowboys insider, Bobby Belt. And Bob's in studio with me right now. How the heck are you, man?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Doing great. Doing great. It's a game day. It's a game day, and there's a lot on the line for many dudes tonight, I would imagine. Maybe not to the same extent as what we're seeing with the Raiders. They're playing some starters, and they're trying to figure out who their starting quarterback's going to be.
Yeah.
Is it Aiden O'Connell, second-year dude, who Bryan actually liked coming out a little bit?
I did.
Or is it Gardner Minshew, the guy that I love so much? I mean, just the personality and everything. I really can't get enough of him. I can't wait to find out when we go behind enemy lines here in a few minutes, as a matter of fact, and we talk to Jason Horowitz, the play-by-play voice of the Raiders. Is Gardner Minshew still living in a van?
That's a good question because he is Uncle Rico, right? And that's where Uncle Rico was hanging out as well, he was living in the van. And I do agree. I think that you and Gardner Minshew share a lot of same personality traits and quirks and qualities. And so I can absolutely see you being a big fan of his. But
yeah.
Big game tonight for a lot of guys. And this is it's funny the way it's all kind of shifted with the elimination of the 4th preseason game. Like, we don't get the traditional dress rehearsal game anymore.
Right.
And so these games, kind of the way teams choose to stagger them and respond to them and how they want to use personnel is all different. You can't just bank on, 3rd preseason game. I know their starters are going to be out there for half. Ours are going to be out there for half. We're going to get this look. But, I mean, there's definitely a lot riding on this game for a lot of different guys tonight.
You know, Bobby, I kind of feel like that we're going to see a trend, and it started. I'm behind the times on this one. The joint practices. You know, the Rams, I think, have taught Mike McCarthy something, that you can get great work at your practice facility against another team if you trust that coach and their coaches and their players not to fight. You could get some seriously good work for your starters, and then you don't have to expose them in games. Now, Andy Reid would like to say, hold my beer. I'm going to play my guys and do this. And there's some coaches that still do that and believe in that. But, man, I think this Oxnard camp has been good for 2 times against the Rams on practices, 1 time in a game, and now you get a game against the Raiders. That's 4 opportunities to kind of see your team against some good competition.
Yeah, it's probably, I feel like those joint practices are good work for veterans, specifically.
Exactly.
Like, that's good work for veterans. For, obviously, Trey Lance, Deuce Vaughn, some other guys like that, you want to see game speed. Because as much as you can simulate in those practice setups, game speed can't quite be replicated the same sort of way that it is on, even an exhibition game. So I think that's a perfect balance as long as you're making sure your veterans are getting work in those joint practices. And the guys that you really need to know about, you got to really see in the speed of those reps and the speed of an actual game. I think it's good then to have those preseason games for that.
Bobby, you and I did a Love of the Star that's posted right now, and I encourage folks to give that a listen after our broadcast and after the game tonight.
Probably our best one ever.
Yeah, it was a good one. Bobby, I feel like this. I kind of feel like people say, Bryan, tell me who you're watching. I think 4 receivers battling for 2 spots. I kind of feel like that. I know we talked about that a little bit, but I kind of wanted to get your thought because I'm looking at Cropper, Flournoy, Durden, and then with Billy Johnson. If they keep 5, it might be 1 spot. If they keep 6, it might be 2 spots. Is this something? Am I barking up the wrong tree here? Is that the spot right now that you're looking at the most, or is it that running back spot?
No, I think you're right that there's 4 guys that are really competing and jockeying there, and I don't think it's for 2. I think it is for probably 1.
Okay.
It could be for 2 because I went through this list just yesterday, Bryan, just kind of on my own. I was looking at who are guys
you kept 5 receivers, didn't you?
Well, I went through and I was like, I'm going to go position by position and just look at the players that I feel like the Cowboys wouldn't want to expose to the waiver wire.
Oh, we get too emotional about that,
Yeah,
Bobby.
just kind of look at it like realistically, who do they feel like I think this guy should be on an NFL roster without getting into cut downs. And it came out to around 53, but it came to five receivers. So do you want to then say, okay, well, if I want to carry a sixth receiver, if I want to carry one of these other three that are left out in the cold,
where are you going light?
Yeah, am I going to end up, having to run with 4 backs, including Lipke?
Yeah.
Or do I go to 5? Do I run light on the offensive line? Do I only carry 3 tight ends instead of 4? So they've got some questions there with that. I'm interested to see how the cornerback group continues to play out.
I like what you're doing here.
The running backs, Deuce Vaughn this is going to be a game that can potentially kind of change his career trajectory a little bit. Because if he shows up in a big way, he's back in the conversation here. If he struggles, he might be out the door, and after that, you don't know where the next opportunity might come. So I think the running back group, the corners with Eric Scott, Andrew Booth,
go. Okay, that's what I wanted to ask. Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about. Was Eric Scott and Booth? Now, my opinion, I feel like that maybe Eric Scott, his fate has been sealed.
Mm-hmm.
I think they need to figure out Booth here the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, figure out if he's got something that you want to keep. Because, look, I know in Washington they feel like they are short on secondary help right now.
Okay.
And we know that a certain gentleman in Washington is a big fan of Eric Scott, like we've talked about before. So maybe that becomes something where you're trying to figure out Booth and then you view him as expendable, or you want to move things that way. But yeah, Booth, I think absolutely you got to see what you have here, see if he can flash a little bit. Noah Igbenogany came in, kind of hung on the roster for a little bit that way last year. So same sort of path you could potentially have there. But I think there's still room for Eric Scott to make an impression. I don't think he's like out the door yet, but I do think he's working at a disadvantage. Because, again, what we're talking about is Mike Zimmer comes into this roster and Eric Scott was already here. He may like Eric Scott, but we have no evidence of him ever saying, I want Eric Scott. Mm-hmm. Going and getting Andrew Booth means Mike Zimmer gave a thumbs up to acquire Andrew Booth. So we know at the very least, we know for certainty he likes him. I also think, you've talked about it, Brian, Nick Vigil starting to make a little bit more of a push here. Does that jeopidize Willie Harvey potentially? Yeah. Or is that a 6 linebacker room instead of, assuming you count Parsons as an edge, is that a 6 linebacker room? If they're only carrying 5, who do they want? Do they want Vigil or Harvey? If it's 6, does that cut out Damian Wilson? I think that's another group that's going to be interesting to watch.
Bobby, I don't have a damn clue on these tight ends. And I've been here the whole time, and I don't have a clue. I really don't.
It's something where I think that right now, when I was going through and I was making my list, I was like, the guys I think they absolutely would say they're on. And it's not anything we're talking about right now. It would be Ferguson, Schoonmaker, and John Stevens.
Yeah, that's the 3 I had. But Schoonmaker is a second-round pick. I'm trying to see, okay, is there somebody that's shown more than Schoonmaker that can knock him out of that 3rd spot? And you don't even think they're going to move Schoonmaker,
no,
right?
I don't think they're going to give up that quick.
I don't
especially because he's had some injuries and things like that. And that's still part of the process. Your availability is part of determining what kind of value you give to a team. But I think that there's going to be more patience than that with him. He's definitely somebody who is in danger of being on the bubble if we're talking about the same player next year. Like next year you're in trouble. But I think that Schoonmaker's on, Ferguson's on, Stevens is on. So at that point it comes down to, do you want to carry a 4th tight end? Do you want to carry Princeton Fant? Or do you view it as this is redundant because we've got Hunter Lipke, and Hunter Lipke, if we didn't have him, we could justify Fant because he's a 4th tight end, but he could also play some H-back. He could do some different things for us. I know that they're impressed with the way that he is able to do things in the run game, Princeton Fant. And I know Dak has spent a lot of time working with him the last 2 years. And so I think they'd like to find a way for Fant. Fant is one of those truly bubble players. I think you've really only got like 4 to 5 bubble players every year. He's one of the ones that is truly on the bubble.
Bobby, I love these safeties. I love the safeties. Any thought about them from your standpoint of it?
It's we talked about how
surplus maybe.
Yeah, potentially. I think that we've talked about the idea of I really like Israel Mukuamu. And the kind of flexibility that he can give and stuff like that, but then he doesn't consistently take stuff into games and things like that. I'm not saying that he's going to make.
No. I mean that one hit me upside the head like a 2x4.
I like.
2 years ago he was awesome.
No, but I mean even there were times at camp early on this year where he was making plays still.
Yeah, that's the problem. The problem. He shows up.
He doesn't take things into games, and that's been the biggest problem with Mukuamu. So like you've got guys there that you feel like, hey, I like them or I like what they can do here, but I don't see it consistently enough. So to me, it's would you consider 4 safeties a surplus? Like, are you only going to run with 3 because of how many linebackers you have? Because I think it's Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson, Wanye Thomas, Marquise Bell. I think that's your safety group, and I don't know that they're feeling really challenged otherwise. So it just depends on if they would want to run light, I guess.
I tell you what, the kid I'm really liking is this Julius Wood. Yeah. And I know he had an interception, but watching him practice and how he's around the ball, could he be a guy that covers? I mean, we've seen Wilson. That I'm always kind of struggling with Wilson is who I'm struggling with. With Hooker, but who opposite? I love Bell because I think Bell's a gamer. I just think he's a gamer. And when you watch him practice, you really don't see him practice. And then when he gets in the game, he's got 9 tackles and he should have 2 interceptions in the game.
Yeah.
That's how he plays. So I wonder, is Wilson's on this team as far as you're concerned? I'm thinking if I have to maybe move a guy that I can get some value, because I'm not going to move. I was talking about maybe moving Bass, right? Mm-hmm. But, man, my tackle depth is terrible right now. And I might need Bass to play if I have to move Tyler Smith.
Yeah, because, I mean, right now the tackles that you feel comfortable putting on the roster for certain would be Guyton, Steele, and Edoga, and Edoga's hurt.
Right.
And then, I mean, they seem to feel like Thomas is more of a guard. Even though
Awesome Richards doesn't want to play tackle, I don't believe.
Awesome Richards, they seem to like him inside at guard too. That's the problem.
I know, that's what I'm saying, and he likes it. He likes, but that's what I'm saying. And maybe you can move Bass, but I'm also thinking about protecting myself. Thomas, the kid they drafted, the rookie, he's got knee tendonitis thing, and
he's got a lot of issues.
He's not practicing, so he's practice squad as far as I'm concerned. But, man, maybe the strength of your team is those inside guys, but also my ace in the hole is if I have to move Smith. And I don't want to maybe move on from a guard if I have to move Smith.
I mean, if you can't figure out the tight ends, do you think somebody would say, like similar to Andrew Booth, do you think somebody would gamble and say, I'll take a shot at Luke Schoonmaker? He was a second-round pick a year ago. I'll figure him out.
Man, you're selling low on that one.
You are, but I mean, they had to sell on Andrew Booth.
I know.
And that was
right.
2 years ago.
Yeah, I know that, and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
I mean, it sounds like you have enough at wide receiver and you have enough at the safety position if you need to make a move. If you're trying to bring in a running back or something.
There's the 4 guys that we mentioned, those wide receivers. They might be 5th guy for the Cowboys. That might be a 4th guy for somebody else. I'm not going to act like I know all the. There was one time in my life I knew all the NFL. But there's right now, one of those guys might be a 4th or even a 5th for somebody else. So I think that's where we're at.
All right. Thank you very much to Bobby Pelt as we go
Robert.
Inside the Star each and every week during the official pregame show of America's Team. You're the man. I'm asking everybody, are you allergic to anything?
Yeah, cats. Pretty bad.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. 877-881-1053. What are you allergic to? Let's go behind enemy lines as we keep inching closer and closer to kickoff. Preseason game number 2 in Las Vegas. Let's go behind enemy lines with the voice of the Raiders, Jason Horowitz, next right here on The Fan.
Football season is here, but it's still hot, which means pests like
toy haulers, and everything camping. The fun starts at Funtown RV, the official RV dealer of the Dallas Cowboys.
O'Connell starts the fourth, first and 10 on the 33. Pump fakes to the left, takes the shot, deep down the left sideline. Open man at the 5 is Myers, catches, walks in, touchdown Raiders! The pump fake froze the defense, and Myers down the sideline. He has run one in, he has caught one, and the Raiders in full control here on the first play of the fourth quarter.
Just over 2 hours to a Cowboy kickoff, preseason game number 2. Let's go behind enemy lines with the voice of the Las Vegas Raiders, Jason Horowitz. We got to do this last year, Jason. We had a great time, and we appreciate the time once again. How the heck you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Change of venue. Temperatures are basically the same here and there. The AC's not perfect right now in Allegiant Stadium. I hope by 7 local we get that fixed for Brad and Babe's sake. But other than that, everything is great.
Wow, I thought you guys were going to be on your best behavior with the hospitality, trying to show Dak what the other side could look like.
Well, I mean, he's sitting on the sidelines, isn't he? Is he scheduled to take any snaps tonight?
No, he will not be. He will not be taking any snaps tonight. That's for sure. But I know that the Raiders are the team. Like as when we start fleshing out what it could look like if Dak and the Cowboys don't get the deal done. I mean, is that something that you hear plenty from Raiders fans? Like Dak could be that guy next year?
Well, I mean, a couple of different things, right? So first of all, Dak's going to call, if that were the case, and you guys know this and talk about this daily, but I'm guessing Dak is in the neighborhood of $50 to $60 million, right? So there's that element to it. There's the element to it that the Raiders have had a quote-unquote good regular season quarterback with a lot of numbers, but we had that for 10 years. I don't really think right now. I would definitely think over the course of the off-season part of the summer, everyone was having conversations about, hey, who should be the next Raiders quarterback moving forward. But over the last 3-4 weeks, Raiders fans are very focused on who is going to be the quarterback this year. I'd say it's close to 50-50. Half want Gardner Minshew, half want Aiden O'Connell. Both have done some good things. Last week in the preseason game, both did, in different elements of time, both did very solid things. And so it's just a matter of who's going to be the starter week 1 in L.A.
Well, what is there anything that has separated them? I know you say 50-50, and the fan base it tends to, we got 50% of the people that hate Dak and 50% that love it. But where is there anything that's separating the two that maybe you'll see here in the next couple of weeks that will determine who that guy will be?
So if you when you're out at practice in Costa Mesa, the answer was no. Maybe there was a slight edge for Gardner Minshew over the course of 17 days, but not really. Devontae Adams at times over the last few weeks has come out and talked about if I had to, pick who's a little slightly ahead, he said AOC, Aiden O'Connell. So, but no, not really. And then you look at the first preseason game, and the Raiders wanted situational football, and they got it in spades. Aiden O'Connell comes out the opening drive. They're backed up at the 5. They had positive plays. They have penalties, and he responds with a long drive. Gardner Minshew comes in, and he leads 3 scoring drives and a couple of off center balls and a nice touchdown pass to DJ Turner. So they've really done pretty equal things. But when we sat down with Antonio Pierce last night and had conversation about what they're looking for, I said, as we're informing the broadcast today, as we're doing the TV broadcast here today, like what should we be informing the audience as to how you're trying to make your decision? And aside from all the things he has said leading up to today, he said, we want the quarterback who is going to get us off to a hot start. And so whatever that means, right? Is it someone who comes out and has a great first half? The Raiders are tired of being 1-3, 0-3. My first year as the voice, we started 2-7, and that was with a good offense. It was just a bad defense, and last year it was flipped. So they want the quarterback who will be consistent and hot to start the year, and whatever that means to them, that's who they're going to pick.
Jason, then I have a feeling then with what AP is going to do tonight. Is it going to be, because they're always about culture changes and stuff like that.
Sure.
And is his mantra, and we played against last week, the Cowboys played against Sean McVay, and his philosophy is different of how he's going to play his starters. Are we taking an Andy Reid approach here, or are we closer to what Sean McVay might be? being a coach that's trying to come in and say, no, we're about winning here, and it's all, it's the history, it's a fabric of our organization?
Well, I mean, so go based off of last week, and every single starter who is healthy played.
Okay.
Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, they all played. Now, Devontae Adams was not in Minnesota. His wife had just given birth to their third child, so he missed 8 days. He also missed practice 1 day this week with an undisclosed injury. So I don't know if Devontae is going to play tonight. But Antonio Pierce has said right from the get-go, we are playing, we are padded, we are on the sidelines, and they are going to play. And part of that, I think, aside from trying to change the culture and going back to the old Raider way and all of those things, is that they are trying to decide who the quarterback's going to be.
Sure.
And so if you're trying to decide who the quarterback's going to be, it's harder to do that with your guys that are not going to be on the roster. But I would say this, a lot of teams are trying to find those last 7-8 roster spots. The Raiders pretty much know most of this year's roster, and most of those guys are going to play.
Voice of the Raiders, Jason Horowitz, with us here on The Fan. Antonio Pierce as a head coach, I mean, what stands out about him? How unique is he compared to other head coaches that you've been around? He's
very direct. He is very honest. And that's not to say that Josh McDaniels was not honest with us the last couple of years. It's just a different delivery. And I think the other thing with Antonio Pierce, aside from how players have responded to him, because players clearly enjoy their relationships with him, and they all openly talk about the type of relationship they have with he and his staff. But I think one thing that has separated Antonio Pierce, at least what he talks about and demonstrates, is he doesn't think that just players need to be coached. He thinks coaches need to be coached. And that is why Tom Coughlin is on staff. That is why Joe Philbin is on staff. That is why Marvin Lewis is the associate head coach. He is listening to them. He is asking them what he should be doing leading up to the game. He is asking their opinions during the game. He does not want them to tell them Monday morning quarterback, hey, this is what went wrong, this is how you should do it. He wants them to tell him so he doesn't make that mistake in the game. And he talked about that last year. He has openly talked about it all offseason, and I do think that approach is appreciated by the players. Picture Rob Ryan, right? Picture Rob Ryan and Marvin Lewis passing conditioning drills. And they did that. They weren't the same as the players, but every single one of our coaching members had to pass conditioning drills. and that's different, right? And it's a different attitude, and I think the players all appreciate that too.
Well, Jason, I was with Coughlin in Jacksonville in '98, and your starters will be playing the whole game tonight. Then, if that's the case, just get ready for that.
I don't know about the whole game. I'm not sure about the whole game, but you're going to see our starters for most of the first half, if not farther.
I tell you what, Tom is a. I think he's mellowed a lot over the years, but man, in Jacksonville, boy, he was a son of a, what. But yeah, good coach, very good coach. Yeah. I wanted to ask you.
We talked real quickly. We talked about Tom Coughlin with Antonio Pierce a lot last week before the Minnesota game.
Sure.
And his influence on him and some of those things. And, AP openly talks about what it was like for Tom Coughlin being in a New York market that nobody wanted him to succeed.
Right,
exactly. And how well he did succeed despite taking some of the bumps and bruises along the way.
Yeah, he did a fine job there for sure. I wanted to ask you, because I'm super into the draft. We do stuff with DallasCowboys.com draft show on our own station, 105.3 The Fan. We all love Brock Bowers. I mean, when you started to talk about the great weapons of college football, Brock Bowers' name was always part of that. How is he transitioned into with you guys at the Raiders and learning the schemes and all those things necessary for him to be a great player?
So anybody who you talk to on the team, player-wise, with regards when they talk about Brock Bowers, they specifically first and foremost say he's all about ball.
Yeah,
Just Ball Brock is kind of one of the names they give him, and that I heard that at Georgia too. But Brock was on the field for 11 plays last week, right? So 3/4 of the first series, couple plays of the second series. He was on the field for 11 plays. He lined up at 4 different spots. He lined up wide. He was in the slot. He was close to the line with a hand in the dirt as a blocking tight end, and he lined up as a fullback. And so I don't think people are going to be surprised this year when they see his impact. And people who watched him at Georgia know he had 5 career rushing touchdowns, 3 of them last year, and he didn't even play 3 or 4 games because of injury. I mean, he is that different of a dude. And I know a lot of people going into the draft were A, surprised he fell to 13. I'm sure you guys were as well.
Huge,
and then
yes,
B,
yeah.
some people still were surprised that the Raiders took him at 13 because they drafted Michael Mayer in the second round the year before. But just because you have one good thing or what they hope will be a good thing, two can be even better. Right? Ravens were successful with that. People know the Patriots were successful with that. There's been a lot of teams throughout the course of history who have been very successful with that. And you know, if the Raiders get a Jason Witten type of seasons, plural, out of Brock Bowers, and Michael Mayer has a good to great career, nobody will ever remember where he was drafted or who was still on the board.
Voice of the Raiders, Jason Horowitz, with us here on The Fan. Mad Max Crosby is a local legend here in DFW.
Yeah.
I've read that they've had to like hold him out of practice from time to time just because he wrecks so much shop that like the offense can't even get anything done. Is that a fair assessment?
Sometimes. they're now I wouldn't say they hold him out of practice, but they certainly pull him out of drills and situationals from time to time. Because he is that good, you know, and part of that is, and I also actually would say this is a positive as the Raiders are trying to figure out who their starting right tackle is going to be, whether it's going to be Thayer Mumford or rookie DJ Glaze, third-round pick out of Maryland. You know, they've stood up to Max at times, which is great. And that's kind of one of those things. It was the first day of pads when DJ Glaze was lined up at right tackle and Thayer Munford went out with a dislocated finger, and his first rep was against Max, and it was like, oh, he can handle this. Yeah. And but that being said, you know, you've got Max Crosby next to Christian Wilkins, and Max is going to move all over the line. He did it last year. He's going to continue to do it with Patrick Graham's system this year. And he just wrecks things. It's hard for offenses to get into a rhythm, and we've seen that for everybody who plays against the Raiders. But at times they do give other guys some reps and try to take Max off the field. But you know the other thing about this, and I think this is the most important part, because Christian Wilkins is a big-time energy guy as well, guys. You put those two together, their energy is so infectious that it has bled to the rest of the defense too. That swagger, that ability, the reason they believe they can be a top 10 defense again is all there because of that. And if they are, you know, I know a lot of predictions don't have the Raiders winning a lot of games, but man, the Raiders defense had them in games that they lost last year. And I think people forget that 8 and 9 was right there, one game away from being above 500 with an offense that really struggled. And so if the defense is in that type of mode again, the offense should be better. I think this team is going to be better.
Yeah, the defense looks legit on paper. I mean, as I look at this Raiders team, you see plenty of talent. You do. You know it's a tough division with the kings of the entire league, the Chiefs in there, but they feel like a quarterback away. And tonight seems like it's going to go a long way in determining who's going to be that starter, Minshew or O'Connell. Is Minshew living in a van still? I know that was something he used to like to do. Is he still doing that in Vegas?
I don't believe you know what? I have not seen that story about whether he is or is not here in Vegas. I do know that he walked around training camp hotel topless all the time. And so, you know, Vic Tafer of The Athletic, who's covered the Raiders for a very long time, had a great piece on Gardner Minshew Wednesday or Thursday of this week. And it chronicled Gardner's stops along college and the pros. And the title is, Can a Journeyman Be the Raiders' Answer? And it wasn't till his fourth stop in college at Washington State with Mike Leach that he became the guy. And, you know, Minshew Mania became a thing, and Washington State has an 11 wins, and that kind of carried over to Jacksonville. And, you know, everyone kind of just writes him off, but he was a good rookie. And I think people forget that last year in Indianapolis, if Jonathan Taylor's on the field for that fourth down, as opposed to, I don't remember who the backup running back was, they catch the ball, then they go to the playoffs. Minshew leads them to the playoffs. Instead, he goes 7-6. He would have been 8-5 as a starter. So he has been, with the exception of his second year in Jacksonville, a 500 starter in this league with a really good touchdown-to-interception ratio, and he has the ability to make things happen outside the pocket. So I do think there are a lot of positives with Gardner Minshew, and there's a lot to like with his energy as well.
No question. The entertainment factor is through the roof when it comes to Gardner Minshew. Jason, you're a beast. We appreciate the time, my friend. Enjoy the game tonight and have a great season.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. 46 years for Brad Sham. I hope I make it to half of that with the Raiders. I do.
Yeah, that's right. He's a legend. There's no question. And it's his birthday today. Make sure you wish him a little happy birthday action.
I know. They hit the town in Vegas for his birthday last night. I saw.
Oh, very good. Yeah, I know Brad Sham can get after it. I'm looking forward to asking him about that a little bit later on in the program. Thank you for the time, Jason.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Yes, sir. There he goes, voice of the Raiders, Jason Horowitz, as we go behind enemy lines, brought to you by the creators of Buffalo Casino Games. games, and they bring you NFL casino games now. That's right. Kick off with America's team on and off the reels with Cowboys-themed casino games developed by Aristocrat, a proud sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. Do you have a gambling problem? Please contact 1-800-GAMBLER for 21 years and over. All right, we're just over 2 hours to a Cowboy kickoff preseason game number 2. Let's go back out to Las Vegas and welcome in Babe Laufenberg next right here on The Fan.
Tom Thumb's new Drive Up and Go service makes grocery shopping easy and convenient for
and by DallasCowboys.com. Keep track of the boys with daily podcasts and up-to-the-minute blogging at DallasCowboys.com and on the official Dallas Cowboys app.
Just under 2 hours to a Cowboy kickoff, preseason game number 2. Welcome into the official pregame show of America's team right here on your home of the Cowboys, 105.3 The Fan. I'm Eric Chiofalo with the G-Bag Nation. We got Bryan Broaddus, also of the G-Bag Nation, live in Oxnard, California. He's been our eyes and ears, boots on the ground member all training camp long for these Dallas Cowboys. And now it is Babe Laufenberg time here on the official pregame show. Babe, live in Vegas. How the heck are you, man? I was wondering if you were going to be dragging today after the Brad Sham Vegas birthday festivities that I presume went down last night in a bang.
Well, yes, happy birthday to my broadcast partner, but I was not part of the festivities. I actually stayed in the room. I never left the hotel, and it was pointed out to me that, well, if you're in Vegas, sometimes you don't need to leave the hotel, but I studied. I went to the fitness room. I got my coffee in the morning at the Starbucks lobby, and that's what I've seen of Vegas.
Wow. Wow. Creature of habit, Babe Laufenberg. That's your MO, right? You go on the road and you're just watching film. You're eating a nice meal.
It's a business trip.
Yeah, it's a business trip. It is.
Yeah.
It is. Well, it's a business trip for sure. A lot on the line for our guy, Trey Lance. What did your quarterback eyeballs see from Trey last week? What would you like to see from him tonight, Babe?
You know, I probably saw, honestly, what everybody else saw last week, a little inconsistent with his ball placement. And here's a little bit of a disturbing thing for me. You know, being at practice this past week, I did not think he had a good week of practice. Balls were, again, just not where they needed to be. And we've heard a lot of talk about his footwork. Well, I mean, I'm at a loss for words because it's not that complicated. Let me just say that. You take 3 steps and you throw the ball to the guy. And he's just missing people. And I don't know that it's going to change tonight because we saw it last week, wasn't real accurate. I saw it during practice this past week where just a lot of easy throws that an NFL quarterback makes, and he was not making them. So we'll see what he does tonight. Obviously, great athlete, but the accuracy is concerning to me. It really is.
Babe, would helping him tonight, and we kind of don't know. We were just talking with Jason Horowitz there of the broadcast with the Raiders.
Right.
You know, and Antonio Pierce, he's going to try and change the culture, so he's probably going to play his starters a little bit. But having somewhat of a running game or trying to run the ball, I don't know, maybe that puts him in some long yardage situations, which is an absolute mess to deal with as well. But I don't need to see Trey Lance throwing the ball 40 times tonight. And maybe I've got a bunch of healthy running backs, and I've got some offensive linemen, young ones that I kind of want to learn about a little bit. Is it worth our time to try and help him a little bit with some handoffs and stuff?
Oh, I think it's always, worth your while to let that running game take some of the pressure off you. And,
or try to.
We do see.
Yeah,
or try to. And if we do see Max Crosby and we don't see a starting offensive line for Dallas, that could be trouble.
Yeah.
For the Raiders, Max Crosby, obviously, heck of a pass rusher there. But one of the things, too, last week they did, you can boot Trey Lance all day long if you want. He's an excellent athlete, great to get him out of the pocket, but they wanted to see him in the drop-back passing game. So if that was a game last week that they're trying to beat the Rams for whatever reason, you would have seen different play calls. But they wanted to see Trey Lance drop back and be a drop-back passer in that game. And I'm assuming they're going to do the same tonight. We know he can bootleg. We know he can get out on the run. But can he sit there, drop back? I was always fond of the John Elway saying where he said they pay me for third down. So eventually on drives, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, you're going to have to put your foot in the ground and find a receiver. And I think that's what they're looking for out of Trey Lance.
Well, when it comes to the pass catchers, Babe, it's kind of a logjam right now. That's one of those position groups right now for the Cowboys. You got quite a bit that you like there from a wide receiver standpoint. Have you seen anybody, maybe in the game last week or in the practices that you've seen, any of these pass catchers sort of start to separate themselves?
Yeah, I'm going to sound like a coach here, but they all flash a little bit. All of a sudden this guy makes a play and then he makes another, but then he has a drop. And You know, Ryan Flournoy was that guy, the 6th-round draft pick out of Southeast Missouri State. I thought, boy, every time I looked up, he was making a nice play. Then I felt like this past week in practice, saw a few drops. Last week against the Rams, he had the fumble. Fortunately, it went out of bounds. But, you know, Tyron Billy Johnson, he comes out, he impressed you. He's a speed guy. I thought Jalen Brooks played well in the game last week against the Rams, made some nice catches. But it's almost like you can throw a blanket around him, and there's like 5 of them, and you say, hey, pick 2 you want. Jalen Cropper, I thought he did a nice job last week. He is the one guy I think that stood out to me in the sense that if he can come back and have a good game tonight, I think he's going to solidify a spot on the roster. Can't guarantee it, but and then remember he was open for the touchdown that Trey Lance kind of missed him on, 4th and 1 down at the 3, and you know if he gets that touchdown, his game looks different. Hey, Trey Lance game probably looks different.
Yeah,
but Cropper, Jalen Cropper, got to spend all year on the practice squad last year. He's been the one guy I think that if he takes another jump tonight, I think he's going to secure a roster spot.
Babe, I really do like what they've done with this Marshawn Nealon. And I have to admit, there were times that, coming out of Western Michigan that I'm like, man, can this guy really rush the passer? He looks like he's got that kind of ability. Looks like he can bend. He can sharpen the edge. Maybe need to see him do it just a little bit more. But it looks like he's got the traits to be able to try and get it done. Have you noticed anything about it? I will say this, though. They've been playing him on both edges. They've been using him in the nickel as like a 3-technique nickel rusher. They did it down on the goal line against the Rams. Looked like they had some success. Have you seen anything from him or any of these other young edges that have kind of made you take a little bit notice?
I haven't, to be quite honest. And when I look at Marshawn Nealon, Cowboys 2nd-round draft pick, he never had a season at Western Michigan, so the competition was not the SEC. Never had a season where he had 5 sacks.
Right.
Last year, his senior year, he had 4.5 sacks. 3 of them came against Eastern Michigan, which is not a very good football team. So he had 3 sacks in one game. He had 1.5 in the other 9. So I don't know. The notion that you're going to come up to the NFL and suddenly become this pass rusher doesn't mean he won't be good, but I think he's got a long way to go. And I always remember Rod Marinelli talking about these guys, the guys that he coached, the former Cowboys defensive coordinator and defensive line coach. But he said that stuff that works in college doesn't work up here. So all of a sudden you're going to put a move on a veteran offensive lineman, right? And hey, watch this move I put on this guy, and it's like, oh, that got me nowhere. So I do think that pass rush deal, short of the Micah Parsons and the Lawrence Taylors and guys that to me kind of came out of the womb being able to rush the passer, I think it does take a while to develop. Unfortunately, as we all know, the Sam Williams injury kind of accelerated what people are going to expect from Marshawn Nealon,
right?
Because he's going to have to play more plays.
Yeah.
And so it's not going to be a deal where, hey, we'll work him in, get him 15, 20 snaps, and as the season progresses, he'll get better and he'll play a little more. I mean, he's your guy right now.
Right. Yeah, and by the way, coming out of the womb, rushing the passer, that Verse kid that the Rams drafted. That's a coming out of the womb kind of a rush guy. It's funny when you say that. I love Rod Marinelli, but when you said that, I go, Rob, let me remind you about this Verse kid that the Rams just took, and I watched him kill everybody in the ACC rushing this way, and he got after you guys this pretty good this week too as well.
Yeah, I watched Verse with the practice with the Rams, and I you can't see everything, but I did want to go down and watch the one-on-one pass rush drill. And he's
legit.
The reason why he was taking it first round.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's Babe Laufenberg with us here on the Fan, getting you set for pregame or preseason game number 2, Cowboys and Raiders. Now, speaking of the D-line, they bring in Carl Lawson. They make the trade for Jordan Phillips from the Giants there. Did you like those moves, Babe? And do you think either one of those guys will have some impact this year?
Well, honestly, we'll have to see him. And Bryan, you've been in those meetings in those rooms.
Yeah.
I don't know why the Giants would trade you a guy in the division that they're going to have to go against twice a year. I don't understand why they would strengthen it. So clearly they don't believe he's going to hurt them. So that always scares me. It's almost like the Groucho Marx line, right? I would never be a member of any club that would have me.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I would never trade with a team that says, here, why don't you take our guy? We're looking for run stoppers too, but why don't you take him? I'd say,
they got a guy, this Riley, that they really like, that they drafted out of Oregon. I was talking to some guys yesterday about it. It was nothing that I call Phillips a kid. It's nothing that he did, malcontent, mean guy, anything like that. It's just they've got some young guys that they really like. And then this Riley, who they drafted out of Oregon, is a guy that they really they want to keep pushing, and maybe a little bit of a progress stopper here. So, you don't know. Babe, we all make mistakes. The Giants make mistakes. The Cowboys make mistakes. We all make mistakes on personnel. Maybe they made a mistake here. My hope is this turns into what you did with Cooks and with
Gilmore.
Yeah, you make a trade, and all of a sudden, these guys step up. Somebody, hey, the Colts didn't think that Gilmore could play, and then the Texans didn't think that Cooks had anything left. So, that's my hope that they kind of.
I would have said to the Giants. Hey, before we finalize this deal, what about throwing Dexter Lawrence into the mix? No.
A little sweetener there.
Hey, very quickly though, in all the years doing this, I don't know that I've ever seen a team in the middle of training camp acquire all these veteran players by hook or crook. Obviously, they traded for Jordan Phillips. Carl Lawson was out there. But, I mean, you look at Nick Vigil coming in, right? I mean, he's
playing well
for them. But Muhammad, 7th year. I've never seen so many guys. Albert Huggins even came in, 5th year. I've never seen so many veteran players acquired during training camp. Not at the start, not in the offseason. So, but clearly they are not happy with what they have defensively, or they wouldn't be bringing all these veteran guys in.
I appreciate the fact that somebody's got their hand on the wheel. I'm here in Oxnard, babe, and that trailer that has scouting on the side of it. I'm happy that somebody up there is watching their team and saying, hey, we're not good enough. We got to do something differently. And you could get mad at them for not signing contracts. But somebody up there, Will McClay, somebody up there, Alex Loomis, somebody is saying, hey, there are guys that are available that can maybe help us. So I appreciate that from a personnel man standpoint, that they're not sitting on their hands and saying, okay, these are our 90 guys, here we go, that kind of thing.
Right.
I think
easy to throw your hands up in the air and say, well, this, yeah. And I don't know how much Mike Zimmer is pushing them to say, hey, and obviously it's a new defense, it's a new style, it's a 4-man front. There's a whole bunch of things different about this defense that wouldn't necessarily be in place, when a new guy gets here, which Mike Zimmer is really installing a new defense, and so I think part of it is just, hey, what do you need here? That's why I always loved the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? I mean,
continuity.
For the last 40 years, that scouting department knows what they're going to look for.
Exactly know what they're looking for. And, I think with Mike, in my experience being with Mike, he could be a pain in the rear, but Mike is a coach of bring me who you think I could coach. He's I think that with a little bit with Dan Quinn was a little bit more hands-on. Mike's a little bit more like, hey, if you think a guy can help us, bring him in. Right. I'll coach him. And I think that's what Will and Alex Loomis and those guys are doing in the pro department right now.
Well, and through the years, they've done a heck of a job, I think, here.
Yeah,
in the last 4 or 5 years.
I agree. That's Will's background.
People in that have, they brought people in that have made contributions.
Babe, have you ever seen somebody with the out designation on the injury report due to allergic reaction like Mozzie Smith is tonight?
No, and I hope he's okay. We won't see him, obviously. He didn't make the trip, but he may be allergic to Jeff Scanina. What do you think about that, the defensive line coach?
I think there's a lot of guys that are trying to look for the vaccine for that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I sit down there. I sit down there and get scared watching him, babe. I stand on that platform back there. I'm afraid he's going to come up the platform and get me a couple of times.
Oh, that's funny. Well, and Jeff Scanina, who's the defensive line coach for the Cowboys, and a lot of, a lot of passion. Let's put it that way.
A lot of passion.
A lot of muscle.
Somebody, a lot. And somebody asked him, though, how is Mozzie taken to your tough love? And he said he doesn't have a choice.
Yeah, he really doesn't.
So I love that. But no,
That's
the
right.
allergic reaction is a little interesting. My favorite allergic reaction, though, Nils Lofgren, the great guitarist for the E Street Band, Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen, yeah.
At the forefront of the world's greatest garage band, Crazy Horse. But he said, I was allergic to alcohol. He said, every time I drank, I broke out in handcuffs. And that's not to imply that Mozzie is not in handcuffs, but I've always loved that. Yeah. Every time I drank, I broke out in handcuffs.
That is
nice
good.
line. I got to remember that one.
I was asking the Tolos here, babe, what they're allergic to in honor of Mozzie tonight. And the 972 said they're allergic to tequila and they break out in felonies every time.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So that makes plenty
Must be
of
an
sense.
old tried and true. Yeah.
I love that. I love it. Well, baby, you're the man. Appreciate the time as always. Have a fantastic call, and we look forward to catching up with you again next week.
Okay. Thank you, Eric, Bryan. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. There he goes, Babe Laufenberg, right here on the official pregame show of America's Team. We are just over 90 minutes to kick off preseason game number 2 in Las Vegas, Raiders and Cowboys. Let's go around the NFL training camps and preseason action today. We saw quite a bit of action, and I look forward to breaking it down with Bryan Broaddus next right here on The Fan.
Is your workplace on top of its game? For over 100 years, Pollock Aurora has been taking
uninterrupted coastline. Go to visitportaranzas.com and get acquainted with the island life.
Just over 90 minutes to kick off preseason game number 2. Welcome into the official pregame show of the Dallas Cowboys. And, in Vegas. I'm seeing here, Broaddus, did you know that Emmitt Smith had his own restaurant there, Emmitt Las Vegas?
I'm going to be real honest with you. I was invited to go if I was in town. I have a connection that's close to the director of operations for the restaurant, and it was invited to, I was asked, hey, if you're in town, please stop by and say hello. I saw where Clarence Hill, Calvin Watkins made the trip over.
Yeah, that's where I saw it.
Yeah, their pictures looked very appetizing, the food that they showed. So,
looked awesome, dude. We
missed that. Was that not going on when we were at the Super Bowl? Was
I know.
that not open yet? If we'd have known that, we'd have shown up there. I mean, you and I like eating food.
Oh, my gosh, yes. And you have the triplets. There's an awesome mural of Troy and Emmitt and the playmaker Michael Irvin. And I saw Calvin and Clarence taking a picture in front of that thing. That looks absolutely sweet. And then here's the nice touch, okay? And this is perfect because I believe we are Emmitt Smith days away, 22 days away from the first kickoff of the season. So it's very apropos. But I saw a nice old-fashioned that I presume Clarence was drinking, and the ice ball in the cup was shaped like a football, and you could see the number 22 etched into the football ice cube. I mean, my gosh, if that's not attention to detail, I don't know what is.
I'm 95% sure that Clarence didn't pay for that drink. My man has got some gator arms when it comes to getting to that wallet.
That's my guy. That's my guy right there. Yeah. I take a page out of that book from time to time. I'll tell you what, man. Watching Daniel Jones try and throw the football for the first part of that game in Houston today versus the Texans.
11 of 18 for 138 and two picks, huh?
Yeah.
Not very good today.
Those 2 picks were about as bad as you'll ever see. I mean, he starts the game 2 for 6. This is Daniel Jones, your starting quarterback for the Giants. What a disaster. I can't believe they paid him the money that they paid him. 2 for 6, 18 yards. That's how he started. 2 interceptions. 1 went back to the house, and it was a passer rating of 2.8.
Did you see the one that they picked sixth?
Yeah, it was embarrassing.
It was he was in the end zone, and I don't know what he was trying to do. I don't know if he was trying to avoid taking a sack, but he just kind of flung it out there to his left, and the next thing you know, it's in the end zone for a touchdown. So some rough times for our now slim coach there with the Giants. He looks good. He's slimmed down, but the quarterback problems still persist.
Yeah, there's no concern about what the Giants have going on in this division as it stands right now. I do think they're going to have a heck of a defensive line. I mean, the pass rush and stuff like that, there's no doubt. But otherwise, I mean, there's nothing. I feel bad for Malik Neighbors. He had a great grab and a couple of nice plays today. But when you don't have a quarterback, man, you're just
He's damn good.
Neighbors he's unreal.
He is really good. Hey, shout out too. Can I give a couple of shout outs?
Absolutely.
How about the Bear Down Bears 3-0 in the preseason right now?
The Bear Down Bears. What are you thinking, man? You think they're gunning for the division?
I don't know, man. That looks like a pretty tough division. We'll see what happens with Minnesota with the quarterback situation, but Bear Down Bears, 3-0, kind of maybe building something there, and good for them. Also, too, another shout out as well. Remember Simi Fehoko?
Heck yeah, Simi Fehoko.
Simi Fehoko. Just up the road, the Rams and the Chargers are playing preseason football, and Simi Fehoko has 2 catches for 52 yards.
Look at that.
So Simi Fehoko showing up for the Los Angeles Chargers.
That's awesome. Yeah, he was what an awesome dude he was. He was a friend of me and Wolchuk in the nosebleed seats, man. He actually gave us the time of day.
Good dude.
Yeah, love to see that he's making plays out there, still getting it done. Now, as it pertains to this division, I know the Commanders are playing right now versus the Dolphins. I'm trying to get a feel for what Jaden Daniels
was 10 of 12 for 78 yards. 10 of 12 for 78 yards.
Okay, so that he was nickel and
he was nickel and diming it down the field.
Yeah, not even diming. He was just nickeling his way down the field.
He was nickeling his way. He was playing a game of inches is what he was doing there. But yeah, no interceptions, no touchdowns for Daniels there. So yeah, I think the Dolphins were up in that one 10-3. I think my scoreboard was right. Is that what we're
looking at? 10-6 now.
10-6. Here we go.
But yeah, it looks like Tua drove down the field on that Commanders Dan Quinn defense. Now we know the Giants. Listen, they're toast. Do you have any respect for what the Commanders might be able to do? I know Zach Wolchuk in the G-Bag Nation with us weekdays 2 to 7 here on the Fan. Yeah. He's got a little bit of that Commanders fear inside of his body right now, and I'm trying to talk him out of it. Like, dude, they don't have the offensive line. Jaden Daniels, I mean, they're not going to be able to keep his head on straight. I saw the way he was taking hits in the SEC. I don't think that changes overnight in the NFL with an offensive line like that. I have no Commanders fear, but do you think they could have one of those pop-up years where they win 9 games?
You know, how about me? Remember when we all first started working together, I was Commanders guy. Remember that? I was like, this quarterback, it was the kid that they got from North Carolina that I thought the world of, Sam Howell. Remember me and Sam Howell?
Yes.
And I was like, this Sam Howell, you got to watch Sam Howell, and I kind of felt like that 2 years. And then their defense was just trash. And, they traded away a couple of their pass rushers. Their secondary wasn't all that good. They had a ton of draft picks last year. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a rough year. I think they might be a 500 team, maybe a little below, maybe a couple of games. I think the Giants are the team that's probably not going to be very good in the division. But my Commanders, I say the Commanders, because 2 years ago I was on that train. Wolchuk, for some reason, has picked that up. I don't know why. But they're probably a team that will be right at 500 or maybe slightly below 500. I think that quarterback's going to be fine. And Terry McLaurin, I think they've got some weapons on the outside there that they could take advantage of. The defense is going to be the big question. And if Dan Quinn can fix that, then maybe that record goes above 500.
Yeah. Dan Quinn's going to have to sprinkle some magic on that defense, and they're going to have to figure out something with that offensive line if they're going to be anything. I mean, Jaden Daniels, there's no question the talent is. I mean, it just jumps off the screen for sure. And they got some playmakers, but if you don't have an offensive line and you got question marks defensively, I don't fear them. I do still think this is a 2-team race for the division here in the NFC East between the Cowboys and the Eagles.
I would tend to agree with you, yes.
And do you agree with me that the winner of this division here could be 9 or 10 wins?
Yeah, I could. And there's it's just, to me, the schedule that the Eagles and the Cowboys have to play, I don't think is easy. And, we always fight through the injury parts of the season. And, hopefully you avoid those, and you just don't know when you might catch somebody right at the right time. You caught the New York Jets without Aaron Rodgers. That was a week 2 matchup that I was thinking, okay, well, here come the Jets after week 1. Well, here's Jets in week 2, and, we're looking at this. But then Aaron Rodgers is out. So teams, how injuries play throughout the year, the schedule can be very daunting on paper, but then when you actually start to play it, it's like, we were talking with Jason Horwitz with the Raiders. They start off with a terrible record, fire the coach, and then they pick it up, and then they go to Kansas City late in the year and find a way to win a game they probably shouldn't have won. They're games. Sometimes you catch teams at the wrong time of the season, but the Cowboys, the fact that their 17th game is against the Houston Texans, that could be very well battling for an AFC shot, that's gonna be tough.
Yeah, I think about the Cowboys' fortune of playing the Rams when they played them last year.
Sure.
When they were a shell of themselves.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the season, that was one of those teams that nobody wanted to fool with.
The Packers were the same way. The Packers were just kind of stumbling around, and all of a sudden they figured out things late in the year. They had to almost win every game to get into the playoffs. They lose to Carolina, I believe, or barely beat Carolina. They lost to Tommy DeVito. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Lost to the Giants. Okay, lost to Giants, beat Carolina. It was one of those crazy games, and you're like thinking, well, the Packers, and then they came in your place and knocked you around pretty good. Sometimes you catch teams that are really, really hot at the end, and then sometimes you get teams like Philadelphia that start off 10-1, and completely fall apart. Schedule is I always say this, NFL is a strange lady, and that's what makes it so great.
Yeah, for sure. And you've been around this league for a long time, Broaddus, being a scout and everything like that for many, many years. What do you think of this Falcons strategy? Head coach Raheem Morris is talking about how they're not going to be playing their rookie top 10 pick quarterback Michael Penix Jr., saying that Mike showed us last week enough that we don't have to play him again in the preseason. So sitting him for game 2, they plan to sit him once again in game 3. So the entire preseason of his rookie year, Penix will be playing a total of like 1 quarter of football and have 16 pass attempts. Do you like that idea, or what is that? Can you explain this to me? It doesn't make any sense to me. If especially since he's probably not going to get unless
you're going to hate me.
Okay, please.
You're going to hate me for this one. You're going to hate me for this one. I think they're playing into the feelings of Kirk Cousins. Like if this kid plays well in week 2 preseason, week 3 preseason, then all of a sudden it turns into, the unknown of the player.
Okay.
Doesn't allow the fan base and all of us to scrutiny. If say things start to go not well for Kirk Cousins, then immediately what do? It's time for Michael Penix to play.
He lit it up in the preseason. What the hell are we thinking about here in Atlanta? If we were doing Atlanta radio and the Falcons start off 2-5, now it's like, well, let's play Michael Penix. Well, what do we have to go on? What do you basing your decision on right now? This seems like to me that they're trying to avoid, and this is just probably reckless speculation. I think they're trying to avoid Penix looking really, really good and people immediately wanting him to play over Cousins. That would be my guess. Wow, man. I thought the NFL was a cold business. I can't believe they'd be worried about the feelings of somebody like that.
That when they drafted, remember how that all went down?
Yeah, Cousins was not happy
the general
about that.
manager, I mean, all those guys he's having to explain why he took Penix to Arthur Blank. Well, wait a minute. Why'd I write a $100 million check? What am I, whoa, what are we doing here kind of a thing? This seems like to me that they're protecting themselves a little bit with this, by not playing him, because then it turns into, well, we know what we have in the player, and when he has to play, he'll play. But we're not going to let you say, well, gosh, in the preseason, he was 50 of 72. Why would you not play him? Why would you? This sounds like to me they're protecting some feelings here.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I appreciate that explanation.
That's my best explanation. How about that?
No, because on the surface it didn't make any sense to me. And then you had Mahomes going behind the back to Travis Kelce to convert a 3rd down today. So he continues to just sort of revolutionize the sport with just how dominant and crazy he is. All right, well, there it is around the NFL for you here on the official pregame show of America's team. Under 90 minutes to kick off. Cowboys, Raiders in Las Vegas, preseason game number 2. Christy Scales, best sideline reporter in the business. She joins us next live from Vegas here on The Fan.
Bell Nunley has been committed to serving their clients for over 4 decades. This Dallas-based full-service law firm offers an extensive array of legal services.
Track of the boys with daily podcasts and up-to-the-minute blogging at DallasCowboys.com and on the official Dallas Cowboys app.
Just over an hour to kick off Cowboys and Raiders preseason game number 2, live from Las Vegas here on your home of the Cowboys, 105.3 The Fan. Great to have you in on a Saturday night. And it's time to get the scoop from the best in the business, Christy Scales, ladies and gentlemen, out there at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas right now. Christy, happy game night to you. How the heck are you? And what do you think of this Allegiant Stadium?
I really like it. It from the outside, it looks like a Roomba, right? But on the inside, it's very nice. The only thing is it's small by NFL standards in that it only seats just over 62,000 people. And so Cowboys games average about 93,400 during the regular season, so 30,000 fewer people in the stadium. But what's cool is the playing surface is natural grass for NFL games. But this is similar to the home of the Arizona Cardinals in Glendale, where the grass field rolls outside during the week and sits in the parking lot, and they roll it in for the NFL games. But UNLV, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, also uses this stadium for their home football games. They use the artificial surface for that. So if you say, oh, is it artificial surface or is it grass? And the answer is both. It depends who's playing. The other thing that's neat is above one of the end zones, but beyond the end zone, there's the Al Davis Memorial Torch. Al Davis, the former owner and general manager and coach of the Raiders. It's 92 feet tall. It's not a real flame that comes out of the top. They use fog and lights to make it look like a flame. But that, the conical object going up 92 feet. Guys, this is an interesting fun fact. It's the world's largest 3D printed object. 3D printer out of a company outside of Kansas City in Overland Park. So there are a lot of really cool features. So it's here not for the Super Bowl, the game itself, but for the media day. And so now I'm just happy to actually get to do a game tonight. And what's cool is knowing that the Raiders are going to have their first teamers, at least for the beginning of the game. I think this is going to be a really valuable test for these young Cowboys. Let's see if, like we talked about last week, with what they're doing in practice at training camp, if they're able to manifest that in actual preseason action.
Well, Christy, there's a lot I really want to get to, but I'll focus. Is there anything about with Jordan Phillips, newly added? I don't expect him to play tonight, but any thoughts that you might have?
You need to raise your expectations, Bryan, because he's going to get about 15 snaps or so.
There we
go.
Here's
the thing. The Cowboys did trade for him from the Giants, right? Well, remember, he was going through training camp with the Giants, so it's not like Carl Lawson, who they just signed as a veteran free agent off the street who needs a ramping up process. So Phillips, all 340 pounds, 48 pounds of him, He's going to play. They're planning for about 15 snaps tonight. Now, he's more of a 3 technique than a 1, so that would, and look for him to start the game. So since Osa Odighizuwa and the other starters on defense aren't going to play tonight, so Jordan Phillips, number 98, will be starting in place of Osa Odighizuwa tonight.
And he wears number 98. Am I right about that?
Yes, and actually take the 9 and the 8 and stretch it as wide as you can, so it's really 98. He's a very wide man. When he turns sideways, he's at the 30, the 29, and the 28-yard line.
Okay, well, that's awesome information from you, Scoop. Any plan with Guyton in those guys with the offensive line. Any thoughts
there?
there?
Tyler Guyton, So Chuma Edoga started last week's game at left tackle and suffered the dislocated left big toe. And so Tyler Guyton came into that game a little earlier than planned last week, early in the first quarter. He's going to start tonight. The plan for him is to work well into the second quarter, maybe the entire first half. And again, it kind of depends how they're doing with the offensive series, right? If they're having great success on offense, maybe they pull some of the guys a little earlier than expected. But Guyton will start at left tackle. And then rookie Cooper Beebe, who had been playing guard and some center, he's going to play center tonight. Brock Hoffman will get some work at guard and be the backup center. And then Dakota Shepley, who's been getting snaps at center, he's going to be exclusively guard tonight. So we're going to get to see the two rookies in extensive action tonight in the first half, and Cooper Beebe probably into the second half as well. But Tyler Guyton, your first-round pick, and then your third-rounder, Cooper Beebe. So that's going to be fun, and the fact that, again, that you're going against first-team Raiders defense, that's going to be great work for those guys.
Absolutely. Really, really looking forward to watching the rookie lineman. I mean, my goodness, Tyler Guyton. I mean, he has his hands full in practice versus Micah every day, but here comes Max Crosby potentially in a preseason game. So that's going to be a lot of fun. It's Christy Scales with us here on The Fan. Is there anybody on the defensive side of the ball that you feel like coaches maybe are really interested in seeing what they got tonight?
Well, I was just talking with Greg Ellis about this, and he mentioned a couple of the ends, and that's Tyrus Wheat,
yes,
as well as Darrell Johnson. And it's just, and Greg said, hey, they're going to be going against first-team tackles, and they've been going against, mainly some second-team guys. So this is going to be a really great test for them. It's a true measuring stick because, if we need them once we get to the regular season, they're going to be going against first-team guys. So I know that guys like Wheat and Darrell Johnson are like flying under the radar, and they're not getting a lot of publicity out of camp. But that's why tonight is important, as coaches are focusing on those guys. And then I think I'm really interested at cornerback with Kalen Carson, who had a really good opener last week at the Rams, and him not being available at cornerback. Eric Scott did have the interception last week towards the end of the game, but I don't know if you guys agree with me. I thought the first three quarters were rough at times for Eric. And so he redeemed himself at the end with that interception. But he's going to be going, probably not Devontae Adams, but going against the top Raiders receivers. And so I think it's a great test for him. And guys like Josh Butler and Eamon Hall, going to get a lot of work there in the slot. So this is a big night for these younger cornerbacks or these second-year guys who are battling for roster spots.
Christy, you've spent a lot of your days down there on an NFL sideline, and you've had to deal with chain gang guys and all kinds of things going on there. But I read we were using the virtual measurement system tonight, kind of testing that out. Are we still dealing with chain gang guys? How's that all going to play out?
Yeah, so the chain gang's still going to be here, and for the NFL, there's no plan to take the chain gang away. But each weekend of the preseason, the NFL is choosing 3 different games to test this VMS, virtual measurement system. So tonight here in Vegas for Cowboys Raiders, we get this. What is VMS? If you've watched tennis over the last several years or watched international soccer and you see that line and they use the line to determine whether or not in tennis if the ball is in or out, in soccer if the ball is crossed, is it a goal or is it not? This is going to be used for first down measurements. Now, what happens is there are 6 cameras in the stadium, 4K cameras, and they use it to locate where the ball is spotted. So let's say that the line to gain is the 40-yard line, and the ball carrier goes down and it's, close to the 40-yard line. Do we need a measurement here? Let's save the average 40 seconds that it takes for the chain gang to run out there, and using this awesome technology in a second, by pinpointing the location of the ball and knowing that we need to get to the 40 and there are chips and there's that imaginary line going across, we know exactly where that ball is spotted thanks to this VMS. And in New York, their headquarters, they're going to call back to the replay person here for the NFL, and the replay person, they'll call down, and the officials on the field, not just the referee, but all 7 officials, will know whether or not the ball is, whether it's a first down or not. So it takes less than a second once the ball is spotted by the officiating crew for New York to be able to take a look and then make the call. Now, what's going to happen tonight, and in the other places that this takes place in the preseason, in the video boards here at the stadium, and then if anybody is watching the game on TV, it will show the line to gain, and it will show where the ball is spotted. So just like if you're watching a tennis match, is that ball in or out? In this case, is it a first down or is it not? So that's VMS technology. They're looking for it. It's part of it's the Hawkeye system. If you've heard of Hawkeye, Sony and the Hawkeye system, they have a deal with the NFL. Starting next year, Sony, it'll be the communication system for the coaches. They're going to take over that. But anyway, they're testing it in preseason to see if they can use it starting next year. It will not replace the chain gang. It is an enhancement.
There we go. I love it. Welcome to the 21st century NFL. I mean, my goodness. I'm glad the chain gang still has a job, though. Those guys didn't lose their gig, so that's a wonderful thing. Christy, we appreciate the time as always. Thank you, and we look forward to catching up with you next hour.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Brian.
Absolutely. There she goes, Christy Scales. I know Christy and Brad and them had I think she went to the Carrie Underwood concert last night in Vegas.
Too.
I didn't get a chance to ask her about it. Maybe we will coming up next hour. But it was a birthday weekend in Vegas for Brad Sham, and Christy's always going to find the hot spots there wherever she is. So that's fantastic. We'll catch up with Christy here in just a little bit. Just over 60 minutes to kick off. We continue to get you set for Cowboys Raiders. We'll hear from Coach McCarthy, Jerry Jones, and much more next, right here on The Fan.
The Medal of Honor is our country's highest military award for valor in combat. More than 40 million individuals have served in the armed forces since the Civil War. Fewer than 4,000 have received the Medal of Honor. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a place to preserve
Brad Sham, Babe Loffenberg, Christy Scales, Eric Chiofalo, and Bryan Broaddus. Brought to you by
Deutsch Family Wine and Spirits, official wine of the Dallas Cowboys. AT&T, the official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. And by blockchain.com. Make your crypto play today.
Also brought to you by
Bell Nunnally, behind every great company. Jack Link's Beef Jerky. Jack Link's, feed your wild side. Volleman's Dairy, the official milk of the Dallas Cowboys. And by DallasCowboys.com. Keep track of the boys with daily podcasts and up-to-the-minute blogging at DallasCowboys.com and on the official Dallas Cowboys app.
Now, here's Eric Chiofalo and Bryan Broaddus.
60 minutes to a Cowboy kickoff here on the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network. Great to have you in. Preseason game number 2, Cowboys Raiders. It's the official pregame show of America's team. I'm Eric Chiofalo. We got Bryan Broaddus, boots on the ground, eyes and ears for us here all training camp long in Oxnard, California. And we got you for the next 60 minutes as we get you set for kickoff here. Absolutely loaded as always. We will go into the owner's box with Jerry Jones coming up later on in the hour. Of course, we'll have Brad Sham live with head coach Mike McCarthy from Allegiant Stadium here in just a few minutes as well. But Broaddus, let's dig into the preview here, brought to you by Sleep Number, the official sleep and wellness partner of the Dallas Cowboys. Preseason game number 2, based on some of the things we saw last week in the first matchup versus the Rams. Now you're in Vegas taking on the Raiders. What's at the top of your want to see list tonight?
Yeah, I'm really not interested in seeing Trey Lance throw the ball 40 times tonight. You know, I'm interested in them. You know, they've got healthy running backs. This is the first time in, since camp started where everybody has health. And so I get it. It's going to be the Raiders, probably their first defense going out there with some backup guys. But you got to try. You got to try maybe, with Cooper Rush likely to start this game, maybe the first series, maybe the second series. But you got to try and see what you have at this running back spot. I could not imagine the Dallas Cowboys going into the season feeling like, okay, well, our running back room is going to be just fine with Ezekiel Elliott, Rico Dowdle, Malik Davis, and Hunter Lipke. And, you need to see where where Deuce Vaughn is. He's missed a ton of camp, but showed up the other day when they're in the Rams scrimmage. He's running in the red zone, finding some holes and stuff. So I just feel like that maybe, it's going to be maybe some tough sledding, but at least like to see them trying to figure out that group on the offensive side. They've got 4 receivers and Bobby and yourself and I, we've talked about the 4 receivers maybe battling for one spot. We're running out of time. This camp's about over at this portion. These receivers, somebody has got to, Cropper has done a great job of kind of putting himself ahead of all those guys, but there's that somebody's got to come up and have a big game and kind of say, okay, well, this is a guy we need to consider. The cornerback spot. There's Eric, there's so many different ways this game could go. With Christy getting on with some talking about Phillips, playing a little bit at defensive tackle. If the Raiders are going to play their one offense, if they're trying to figure out their quarterback situation, you're going to see him right there, right off the jump. Not a lot of reps here, or understanding what he has to do with the Cowboys or knowing the scheme. But here we go, an opportunity to play. So there are a lot of storylines for guys tonight because we're running out of time. We're running out of time as far as guys being able to make this football team.
Yeah, this is an important game for a lot of guys, and as you mentioned, the Raiders, it looks like they're going to be running out plenty of their starters at least to start this game, because the Raiders are trying to figure out who their starting quarterback is going to be. Is it going to be Aiden O'Connell, the second-year man, or is it going to be Gardner Minshew? And so they're trying to get as fair a look as possible. So we'll see how long the starters are out there, but it'll definitely be a good look for some of the young guys here. I mean, Tyler Guyton, first-round pick left tackle, he's going to be out there playing. He might get some action versus Max Crosby, one of the best edge rushers in the sport. It looks like Cooper Beebe, the rookie out of K-State, is going to get the start at center. So those are two things I'm really, really excited about. But you mentioned a couple of position groups. let's look at those running backs for a second. Has anybody stood out to you here, Broaddus, or is that another position that you could see the Cowboys maybe saying, hey, we might need to make a move here before the season starts and bring in another guy?
We had Babe Laufenberg on earlier, and we were talking about, the position itself and, how, we'd like to see, or I'd like to see them try and maybe do some things in the running game to see if anybody here can be a guy that is that difference maker. My gut feeling right now, they keep talking about, like, I sit at these press conferences and listen to Mike McCarthy talk about Malik Davis, like he's Walter Payton or Emmitt Smith. He's like, well, he's having a really good camp. He's not, and I'm like going, I haven't seen really any. Rico Dowdle, to me, looks like the best back on this roster right now. Mm-hmm. There's been a couple of times, the first Ram scrimmage where Ezekiel showed a little bit of some burst, but not like Rico Dowdle does. So I'm interested in, is there somebody that, and they like to talk about it, 105.3 The Fan, we did the draft coverage, and they're talking about juice. We want juice. We want juice. Who's the juice running back here? Who is that guy? Is it Vaughn? Is he going to come in here and give you a little something? Is he going to, I just kind of feel like that. Yeah, you could talk about Elliott, you could talk about Dowdle, you could talk about Hunter Lipke. Those seem to be the guys. If there's one more spot, who is that guy? And that it's much like the receiver room. Who is that one guy that's going to get that last position? And maybe a guy who hasn't practiced a whole hell of a lot, that Deuce Vaughn, shows you something running the football tonight. And it's like, okay, in the OTAs, the mini camps, things like that, we were thinking about him for receiver packages. We were thinking about him as maybe a second kick returner. There were a lot of things they were thinking about until he got hurt out here. And we haven't seen it. So I'm interested to see where he is at. Can we come back next week and Mike McCarthy talk about Deuce Vaughn over, say, a Malik Davis and the others, the Royce Freemans and stuff? They've got a lot of backs that are very similar. They need somebody with a little jump to them and that juice that we're talking about.
All right, we're just getting started here on the official pregame show of America's Team. Under 60 minutes to kick off preseason game number 2, Cowboys-Raiders in Las Vegas. Let's go live to Vegas with Brad Sham, your voice of the Cowboys, standing by with head coach Mike McCarthy for tonight's Coach's Corner. That's coming up next. You're listening to the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network.
Hey,
Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Texas, a division of Healthcare Service Corporation, a mutual legal reserve company.
About 45 minutes to kick off preseason game number 2. Welcome into the official pregame show of America's team. About to hear from head coach Mike McCarthy with the voice of the Cowboys, Brad Sham. We'll go into the owner's box with Jerry Jones coming up here in about 15, 20 minutes. But right now we go live to Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, side of tonight's action between the Cowboys and the Raiders. It's your voice of the Cowboys, Brad Sham, on his birthday, standing by with Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy.
Fellas, thanks very much. Back to Cowboys' first visit ever to the stadium in Las Vegas. If it was a regular season game, I would ask you if you were interested and excited. But in the preseason, it's not the same, is it?
I mean, preseason is, it's obviously different than regular season. I mean, you have more things going on. You're trying to develop a roster. You're trying to get your play time right. Obviously, you're sitting some players. So, what do you mean as far as going up the night before? And
No. Well, go
to dinner only?
Well, I will tell you, since you brought that up, I wasn't going to go there. Did you say anything to your team? And if it was a regular season, would you do it any differently about, fellas, remember why we're here?
No, as far as the travel component, no, it's exactly the same because it is a business trip, and it can't be treated any differently. I mean, first of all, this is our first away game, and we have new players, veteran players that are here. We have obviously a rookie class and first year players that they don't know the intricacies of a road game, how we operate, what we do, why we stay where we stay when we go to an opposing city, why the schedule's laid out the way it is. So definitely we took some time today, probably a good 12 to 14 minutes in a team meeting talking about the first trip and really identified particularly where we stay and why we want to be there, but also the elements that they cannot participate in, and it's a business trip.
Is it more challenging for a coach? I don't want to stay on this, but it really fascinates me because boys will be boys.
Well, no, I don't think so. Maybe because I'm older now, having older kids, you understand. I mean, these are grown men. They understand the importance of it, but I don't treat it any different than anything else. I have reminders for everything that we do. How we practice. How we behave. Behavioral management is is a big part of, the growth of team dynamics, and this is all part of it. So yeah, I mean, we covered this trip in detail, just no different than how we cover a home game.
You mentioned new veteran players. I'm sure they won't play today, but I do want to have you talk for a minute about the new defensive lineman that you acquired. That seems to me to be addressing more than depth. Those seem to me to be significant additions.
Yeah, I mean, these are conversations that have been going on, and I think clearly, the competition we're trying to create a defensive line is obvious. Sam Williams' injury is being felt. There's no question about that. So, with that, it's given opportunities to vet guys, and I'm looking forward to seeing them work and seeing them to be part of it. So I think they're two really good acquisitions for us, and like I said, we haven't done anything with them yet, but looking forward to it.
Are your plans? I think you indicated this the other day, but are your plans to play pretty much the same people that you played last week?
It'll be very similar to last week. Yes, absolutely.
My recollection is Damone Clark played last week a little bit. I'm guessing he won't go in this game.
Clark will not go. Yeah, he's part of the medical out group.
So Trey Lance, I think, is obvious. Everyone wants to watch the development of the quarterback. Who besides that now are you really interested in watching? I know you're interested in all of them, but...
just let's go down. You go down through the positions. Obviously, Trey, we want to see him get as much as possible. But the running back group is, we have Royce and Deuce will be healthy this week, so anxious to see those guys get in there with Malik and the other guys. But we get tight end group just see that young bunch play. I mean, those guys got to play, and so John will play a little bit more. Coming back off of his ACL, so that's exciting. And then the receiver, you got that whole young group of receivers that I've been so impressed with working hard. Now the offensive line, we're thin. We got thin there real fast. So. With the two injuries last week. So we got to be smart there. D-line a little bit the same. Numbers are a little tight. Linebackers very, very healthy, so you got great competition there, and the secondaries numbers are tight. So, we're going to line up, I think, with 53 players.
Wow. Okay, that's fewer than you had last week, right?
55 last week, correct.
All right, you mentioned the tight end room, and you mentioned Stevens. Say a little bit more about him. You don't get asked about him much because I don't think people know much about him. And also Span Ford, he's an interesting prospect.
Absolutely, both excellent young prospects. So I think, like anything, if you look at our tight end room, the opportunity to bring the pure Y body type has been a primary focus, and it starts with Fergie and obviously Shoemaker. But yeah, these guys have the ability to play not only the Y, but they can play extended, in the extended formations, and they're doing some things from the backfield. So I really like what both guys have done. John's been more perimeter based, but two young guys that got a chance to be good players.
Looks like to me that Antonio Pierce played many of his starters last week. I would guess he would do the same thing. How, if at all, does that change your evaluation of your guys? I mean,
the evaluation, it's exciting. I think clearly it's not going to change the way we play our players. I mean, and frankly, I haven't even spoken to Antonio, recently, but it's everybody's different. First year, and what he has his needs that he wants to get done in preseason. So we just look at it as a great opportunity for our young players to play against their first group. So that'll give us a great evaluation.
If anyone is any of your what you consider your core players, guys you think right now might be on your 53, are on the verge of injury, nursing an injury, something's a little hinky, are you more conservative now both today and next week to make sure that they're healthy for the first game?
I'm really focused on tomorrow. It's important. Just look at the health challenge we've had this week. So, yeah, I don't project injury. I think that's a bad mindset to be in. I think you're assessing every individual's situation. That's why you look at the GPS reports and you have the medical, connection that you have. So yeah, we'll pick. We just want to get up. We will hopefully come out of this game healthy, but we know damn well that our young guys are going to get a lot of reps.
All right, and finally, when you go to Vegas for fun, what games do you play?
I haven't been to Vegas in a long time. Kids have kept me away. So what game will I play? So you can tell I'm not a gambler. I'm not a big fan of golf. I'd say they got some great golf courses out there.
It's a dry heat. Remember that. All right. That's Mike McCarthy. Fellows, back to you.
Thank you, Brad Sham. Yeah, I know Broaddus, when we were in Vegas, you were getting it done on the slot machines, but I am curious. He was talking about the young tight ends here.
Yeah.
Outside of Jake Ferguson, has anybody really stood out to you?
No, this is where it's going to come down to, because he mentioned Broaddus about Span Ford. I think if you didn't have Hunter Lipke, that Princeton Fant would be in this mix somewhere. Schoonmaker's got to show up at some point in time for you here. And Hendershot is a guy we've kind of thrown dirt on.
Yeah.
But he's had some moments where he's done some good things. So this room is wide open as we speak.
Okay, yeah, that's going to be a fun position to look at. You love Jake Ferguson, and then after that, man, I mean, you would love to see somebody step up and feel like, okay, you're really owning this tight end 2 spot, but it doesn't seem like that's happened. Tonight's a great opportunity for him. All right, it's the official pregame show of America's Team. Just over 30 minutes to kick off here, and we'll get you back out to Vegas because we need to go into the owner's box with the owner and general manager of your Dallas Cowboys. It's Jerry Jones. Dallas Cowboys football will continue in a moment.
Hey, Cowboy fans, I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. But
All right, let's go live out to Vegas here as we're just over 30 minutes to kickoff. Cowboys-Raiders preseason game number 2 here on the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network, Allegiant Stadium. Into the owner's box we go with Christy Scales and Jerry Jones.
Thanks, guys, and so excited to talk to Jerry Jones because it's some history today. The first time the Dallas Cowboys are playing the Raiders in Las Vegas at beautiful Allegiant Stadium. I know you've been in here many times, and Legends Hospitality, you've had a lot to do with this, but this is an exciting night.
Well, it is our first game here. I am really proud of how beautiful this stadium is and what it does mean and did do for Las Vegas. But I also really felt that it would have a lift for the NFL, and that's borne out. I'm so excited about how the perception of the Raiders and Las Vegas and all of the things that go with it serve another perspective on our great game. So this was something that I thought would really be special. The big issue was whether or not they could have the visiting team gate the way they have it. And that's made up of people that are coming to Las Vegas for a big weekend, plus watch the NFL game. And of course, if the Raiders are playing the Cowboys or those Cowboy fans, it knocked it out of the park. They don't have enough seats in this building for the ones that want to come watch their team play in Las Vegas. So that was a concept that really worked, and I'm really proud for everybody.
One cool thing about playing the Raiders tonight is they're going to play starters at least at the beginning of the game, so that means it'll be a good test for your young guys going against first-teamers for the Raiders. So knowing that the first-team Raiders defense will be out there at least at the beginning, what do you think that means for Trey Lance, and what is the biggest leap or improvement that you want to see Trey Lance or change from last week in L.A. to tonight in Las Vegas?
Yeah, I had saw a lot of positive things. Our coaches did that Trey was involved in. He's, dare I say, he's outstanding. I don't want to use that G word, but he's a great athlete. And if we were really trying to win a game in the season, it'd be a different game plan with Trey Lance. And you'd use his legs a lot. But right now, we're trying to almost keep him exclusively in the pocket. Now, he can get out on thirds, or he can get out when it breaks down for him, and you see a little of that. But it would be misleading as to see what kind of game it would be if you played Lance rather than Prescott or Rush. So you're going to see Trey in the pocket a lot tonight, working out of that pocket, working on his footwork. I know you hear that ad nauseum, but that's important for him because he does a lot of things naturally fabulous. He's a tremendous quarterback mind in the preparation for the game. So, and I'm not exaggerating. So I can see why San Francisco gave 3 ones to draft him. But this is a great opportunity. This one and next week against the Chargers to see him do some more.
Staying on the offensive side of the ball, Calvin Watkins with the Morning News reported that on Thursday there were talks between the Cowboys and C.D. Lamb's part representation. Can you give us an update on negotiations and with C.D. Lamb?
Well, are we talking about all the other teams around the league that are talking to somebody that's not in camp? Because every team's got them. And we're having the same kind of talks we've been having. As you know, when 2 people need to get together, they both got to come at that point at the same time. So that's where you are.
And from time frame wise, I know he's been working on his own. You know CD's going to be in great shape, and he knows the system. But is there still, in your mind, like a target date that you'd love to have done?
Zero about anything. Not worried about a target date. Not worried about his shape. Glad he's not out here risking some injury tonight. All of that is not in any way impacting what we're doing for the season. Of course, if he were here, do you think he would have 1 toe on this field?
I hope not.
Well, I'm just saying, you know he wouldn't. And so we're watching those kinds of things. we're here. Al Davis, you're looking down on us.
Yeah.
I've seen Al break up drills in the preseason against the Cowboys. Come out and say, boys, I'm going to need these players in January and February. I'm not leaving them out here in July and August.
Yeah.
Stop.
Al is literally looking down from us from that eternal flame there in the top of the end zone there. So his spirit is with us today. It has been a busy week for you, roster moves, and we're going to see Jordan Phillips, the big defensive tackle that you traded for with the Giants, of course, most known for playing with the Buffalo Bills. He and Carl Lawson you brought in, but we will see Phillips tonight. Tell us about the addition of him and Lawson and what it means for your line.
Well, I think go back. We lost early. We lost Williams, which made us have to count on a couple of them outside for sure. Colston a little more that way, so that made us start hustling around here. And one thing about sometimes in the interior line, you get a chance to do some things with other clubs right at the end of training camp in that area. And so what you're seeing right now is important for us to see these guys take reps, important to see what there's about, but tonight won't be the final pieces to the puzzle.
We appreciate the visit, Jerry. Thanks so much. That's the view from the owner's box here at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas as we continue counting down to Cowboys and Raiders. Let's rejoin Eric and Bryan.
Thank you, Christy. And tonight's Owner's Box is brought to you by Yeti, the official cooler of the Dallas Cowboys and the DCC. Now we get to know the enemy. Broaddus, brought to you by Arrow Exterminators, the official pest control provider of the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, with this Raiders plan tonight, playing some starters, it could be a little tough sledding for Trey Lance, even though Jerry's like, hey, you can understand why the Niners gave up 3 first-round picks for him.
Yeah, that was with Jerry, your man, you're always going to kind of get a little bit of like that head snap, like, whoa, he just said that.
1 + 1 = 3.
and you got to love that about Jerry. I worked with him for 14 years that way, and you never know what you're going to get. But in this case, a couple of things caught my attention about. He says his defensive line is not over. That's not the final pieces. So I would keep an eye on what's going on at the end of this, at the end of training camp. With the tackle situation, with the edge situation, I think they're still hunting. I think he just gave you an idea that there's some other things that they're probably looking to do right there. So the Trey Lance stuff, the game plan, the difference of, ideas about how to use him if it was a regular season game or a preseason game, I totally buying into that as well.
Yes.
The situation, though, with CeeDee Lamb, he seems very dug in here. He seems dug in on this one. And maybe it's it wasn't as bubbly and as nice and as pleasant. It's been pretty stern the whole way, that if he wasn't here, if he was here, he wouldn't be playing. Well, sure. But, the fact that Christie tried to draw something about a timeline from him, I think the timeline is the first regular season game. That's me personally.
For sure. Couldn't agree any more on that. Yeah, the CeeDee Lamb stuff still out there, and we look forward to getting that deal done as quickly as possible, getting 88 back in the lineup here, and certainly for week 1, that's going to be hugely, hugely important. All right, it's almost time for kickoff here, preseason game number 2 in Vegas. Let's go out to Vegas, inside the booth with Brad Sham, and we'll catch up with Christy Scales as well and get the scoop before kickoff. You're listening to the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network.
Crossing Blue Shield of Texas, a division of Healthcare Service Corporation, a mutual legal reserve company.
All right, it's the official pregame show of the Dallas Cowboys, getting you set for preseason game number 2 here, and it's Raiders, and it's Vegas, and it's Brad Sham inside the booth, brought to you by WinStar World Casino and Resort, the casino of the Dallas Cowboys. Please game responsibly. I hope you're gaming responsibly out there, Brad Sham. Birthday in Vegas. How did you pull the schedule strings to make this happen?
That's dumb luck. That, like almost everything that's happened in my life. That's dumb luck. But we had an interesting travel day, and then we had a good time last night, and we went to the not-to-be-missed Siegel's Bagel Emporium today for lunch. Not to be missed. And so here we are, and I would like to say, since I was on the people who ran So-So Stadium and designed it and everything else last week, I like Allegiant Stadium. It's the first time we've seen it. I'm trying to think, Babe and I will talk about it. I'm trying to think what stadium it calls to mind. In some ways, Giants Stadium, but I mean the lines are clean, the signage is good. It looks it's a very appealing stadium.
Well, Jason Horowitz was worried that the air conditioning wasn't working very well to start the game. How has the air conditioning improved for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's possible that I had been in the booth too long and circulated too much hot air at that point. So, no, it's very comfortable. It's extremely comfortable in here.
Brad, how comfortable should this offensive line be tonight with dealing with the Raiders front a little bit?
You know, Stephen Jones said to me once, and I think he has said it to a lot of people, don't get too comfortable.
No, don't get comfortable.
Yeah, it's not just the offensive line, Brian, although that's going to be one. But the Raiders are going to play their people. So that'll be kind of exciting. But it'll mean you will get a pretty good read fairly quickly on, number 60 and number 56 and whatever other young linemen are going to play. But I do think that both Guyton and Beebe are going to start. And when Max Crosby's in the game, if they line him up at right end, then that will be a thrill ride for Tyler Guyton, but he's going to have to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, he's getting thrown to the fire in practice versus Micah Parsons, so why not get thrown out there in some game action versus Mad Max Crosby now?
Yeah, let me just say this. I don't know how much he gets thrown into the fire against Micah Parsons. First of all, Micah lines up all over the place.
Right.
Second of all, he's not really – here's what we've seen of Micah, I think. His first step is even more electric than you remembered from the last time you saw him.
Yeah.
But then all the power and the explosion, he's not using that. And that's the kind of stuff that Guyton's going to have to deal with in addition to quickness. But this will be a whole different test for him tonight.
You know, Brad, in your interview with Coach, he talked about the tight end room. I'm really interested in that because I kind of feel like that's the one position that really hasn't shown up for me in camp. Can I drag you into that fray with me, or where are we at with that?
Sure, of course you can. I mean, Ferguson's an outstanding player.
Yeah.
They love Stevens. They are babying him because he had an ACL last year, and I think they will do that for a while, but I think he's going to make the team. They love him as a receiver. He's still kind of learning how to block. I think it's make or break time for Schoonmaker, who has dealt with a lot of injuries, and there's a lot about him to like, but these next 2 weeks I think are really important for Luke Schoonmaker. And then the other guy that, I mean, you know, Princeton Fant has gotten a lot of reps. I based on all my years in scouting, I see him mostly as a practice squad guy.
Sure.
But Brevin Spann-Ford, as we mentioned last week, you know, they gave him a lot of money. He is an extremely large human. He's supposed to be an exceptional blocker, played in the Big Ten, and an average to above average receiver. And I hope they give him a lot of reps and action. And, Brian, I don't know that in looking at the tape, did 47 just jump out at you for anything?
Not yet. That's what I'm kind of waiting on, Brad.
Yeah, and me too. And I keep looking for him, and so I think the next 2 weeks are important for him also.
Well, cheers to you, Brad Sham, on this birthday weekend, my friend.
Thanks.
And enjoy the game. Enjoy the call. We'll be listening.
Thank you, boys.
Yes, sir. There he goes. Voice of the Cowboys, Brad Sham, brought to you by the WinStar World Casino and Resort. Now it's time to go down to the real. It's artificial. It's not artificial turf. It's the real grass. We learned that today from Christy Scales. She stands down there at Allegiant Stadium for her keys to the game. Brought to you by Pollock Aurora, proud supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Christy, what's on the top of your mind right now?
Let's see if Trey Lance is more accurate with his passes today.
Okay.
You were just talking about the offensive line, and I think that's going to be tough with all of the injuries that have happened along the offensive line, and then even on the interior, Cooper Beebe making his first start at center, and then Tyler Guyton with play most, if not all, the first half. But as you said, going against that first-team Raiders defense, it's going to be a test. So that's the main thing is Trey Lance. Also with the run game, they did so well against the Rams in the first joint practice that Mike McCarthy was feeling good about the run game, and last week against the Rams wanted to see Trey Lance dropping back and throwing from the pocket. So we didn't see much from the run game. We didn't see much from the run game, in my opinion, in the joint practice, the second one this past week, Wednesday against the Rams. To me, it seemed like the defense, both defenses got the best of the offenses that particular day. We're going to see Malik Davis get the start, and we're going to see him play a lot in the first half. But Deuce Vaughn, who's been injured with a hamstring, he's going to get some work first half and some in the second half, and then finally get to see Royce Freeman as well. Of course, Hunter Lipke, Snoop Connor will get some action as early as the first half. So I think Malik Davis, he's had such a good camp. Mike McCarthy was talking about him having a good camp, but he didn't have a good average last week in that game against the Rams, and so I just would like to see a little bit more for him. But again, it's kind of hard to judge that when you've got kind of a makeshift offensive line and even guys playing out a position and the like, when you're going to have the Josh Balls of the world move from guard to left tackle. So I think that it's going to be a makeshift, and it could be some rough going for offense. Trey Lance having time to get it down to the receivers, just because the Raiders, they're a stout defense anyway, very good defense, but it's going to be a big challenge for these young linemen tonight.
Yeah, Christy, in the last minute or so here, how about the secondary? With the Raiders trying to kind of figure out who their starting quarterback might be, we could see the ball in the air early in this one.
I love your point there, Brian. I think that's absolutely right. And so this is a big game for the Eric Scotts of the world, for the Josh Butlers, for the Keeman Halls of the world, and good test for your safeties as well. So, it's too bad that Kalen Carson isn't playing tonight, the rookie, because he had a nice debut, I thought, last week. But, it'll be great, because the thing is, we talk about it all the time, and that's the importance of having the joint practices. These cornerbacks are used to going against the Cowboys wide receivers, and they kind of know their moves and how they like to run routes. It's going to be a different animal tonight, not just because it's Raiders receivers, but it's the Raiders' top receivers, since they're going to be playing a lot of their first team. Not sure if we'll see Devontae Adams, but we'll see some good receivers. So great test for the young cornerbacks tonight.
Christy, you're the best. Thanks for the time. Enjoy the game tonight, all right?
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Brian.
There she goes, Christy Scales, best in the business. Thank you to Brian Broaddus. Thank you to Peyton Russell, everyone who's been a part of this one. Broaddus and Wolchuk will have you for the halftime and the postgame. Kickoff is around the corner. Brad, Babe, and Christy got you the rest of the way. Dallas Cowboys football will continue in a moment.
So, my buds and I are at Buffalo Wild Wings for Game Day Sunday, and there is football everywhere, except when I blink. I once missed a game-winning TD because of a blink.